I think it's a win-win situation rather than bilaterally not being able to move. Our Raksha Mantri is very clearly stated that, look, unless there's peace and tranquility, the question of improving bilateral relations don't come up.
That's right.
And I don't think the Chinese are probably wanting to test waters.
Right.
I think my gut feeling is that they will go back to April 2020 because that will be a win-win situation for both sides.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. You are on our evening program, The Gist. I'm Nitin Gokhale. This evening, we are going to discuss 3 years of the Ladakh standoff between Indian and Chinese armies and the consequences of it between the two nations in their relationship. And with me to discuss all that is a familiar face on StratNewsGlobal, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, a veteran of the mountains and the line of actual control. Welcome to this program, Jan.
Thank you, Nitin. My pleasure.
So, we are completing 3 years of the standoff in Ladakh. It started off with a big skirmish on the north bank of the Pangangso around this time 3 years ago in 2020. COVID was on rampage and the world was distracted, and then we saw suddenly the PLA trying to intrude into Indian territory along the eastern Ladakh line of actual control. When you look back to these 3 years, where are we right now if you have to describe the situation today?
Nitin, I would put it this way that the relations could have been worst because really bad. Because initially, but for the last 3 years since I'm not in the army, but before that, we were interacting with them at various levels on the LAC, border personnel meetings, subsequently later, even when they would come and interact at the command headquarter level. So the interaction was there. And it seemed that we were rather getting closer and it might be looking better and brighter in future. But suddenly, this turn from May 2020 to what has happened, well, something which it taken me by total surprise that China could be doing like this when we are all doing good. The relationship was looking up, the confidence building measures, the peace and tranquility agreements, all of them seem to be working well. Even if there was a misunderstanding, there were mechanisms to sort them out by us at the lower level. When not even I'm talking about the diplomatic or the political level, it was generally sorted out at our level by holding a border personnel meeting. But suddenly things have really gone bad. And I think that's not good because the Chinese seem to be wanting to show that they are the big brother and that they are the center of the universe and that they expect India to be subservient. And that is not as acceptable to India or for that matter anybody.
Yes.
And that is definitely affected at the ground level.
Sure.
Because I don't see those border personnel meetings would be held in that good cordial atmosphere where both of us are eating and at the end of it you sit and saying Kampai and
sure.
Generally having a little bit of a good fun. All that has gone.
So, we'll come back to the atmosphere at the earlier border personnel meeting and what would have changed now. But when we look back at the larger picture of the interaction at the LAC or the military aspect of the border management now, after 3 years of the face-off, the standoff, while there has been disengagement at various points, which I'm sure you'll describe, the armies haven't gone back. I mean, the PLA still has some 50,000-60,000 troops along the eastern Ladakh frontier. India has again done the mirror image or mirror deployment there. As a military man, how would you see that situation? Is this stalemate situation? Is it something that has the potential to get triggered with some small incident? How do you see it?
Well, that's the right word you used, stalemate.
Okay.
I'll put it at that there is stalemate, even though both sides are ready. Even though there's mobilization on both fronts, infrastructure is improved on our side. A lot of things have, I would say, besides the infrastructure, the logistics have improved. The ability to stand up to Chinese mischievous behavior is there. So there is no problem as regards that is concerned. But yes, what you would expect, say at Pangang Show. Let's take one by one.
Yes.
At Pangang Show.
Yeah.
They've gone back to finger 8.
East of finger 8.
At finger 4, finger
Right.
2, finger. So there is a kind of a zone created. Earlier we would go right up to finger 8. They would come to finger 4. So that has gone now. So they are now at finger 8. We are at finger 4.
Right.
So there is a little bit of a buffer that has been created.
Sure.
Let's take it Galwan, for instance. They are pulled back 1.5 kilometers to 3 kilometers behind.
Right.
We've also pulled back.
Correct.
And let's take at Hot Spring, at Gokhale. So there is a little bit of difference that has come up. But notwithstanding all that, the tensions are very high. Things at Depsang are not as cordial as they should have been. Even the word that we use, that status quo ante April 2020, is not being reiterated or being executed on ground by the Chinese.
Right.
That is a very big factor. Then at Demchok, again, you find that they are blocking. Not that it makes any difference. But at all these places, I must, through your millions of viewership, I must be able to say, all these places we are dominating. We can see everything.
So, this is an interesting point and a new point, because critics of the government and the army have mentioned that Demchok and Depsang, India has not been able to assert its right for patrolling or whatever. But when you look at Depsang, which is a plain, it's called Depsang Bulge or Depsang Plains. Describe the situation there when patrols used to go to those points of patrol point 12 and then beyond. Indian patrols used to go, they used to come from the other side. How does that operate? How did it operate that time, and what is the difference now?
See, earlier we could go freely. There were patrol, I would say, an observation post. So they would be seeing us. So as soon as you go towards that, they would get their people around. So there will be an interaction, then raise banner drills and disengage and come back.
Right.
But now, obviously, if you move in between, then you can't sort of, run over them and go. And like you rightly said, Depsang Plains. So you can go from anywhere and you can dominate and see for miles together. So it is not that you have lost anything or you have gained anything. Something. It's very much there.
Right.
Similarly at Demchok, everything. We may not be able to go up to a specific point which we perceive is to be ours. So that's one. But we can see everything. Not that the Chinese can deceive us or they can take us by surprise. No way. Neither at Depsang, nor at Demchok, and neither at Chumar for that matter.
Right.
So that way it's comfortable. But the fact still remains that when we were patrolling, and now if somebody obstructs, the relationship, as I said, between the two armies on ground are definitely not cordial.
Right.
There's a tension. Even when you have the corps commander meeting or the border person meeting at the law level, at the brigade commander level, I don't think there would be that one army that we expect between the two armies which are facing each other.
Yes.
It would be much better if the relationship improves. And I don't think anybody's asking for more when we say April 2020.
Right.
We are not saying 1959, we are not saying 1952, we are not saying even beyond that, 1998. April 2020. What is there? We were maintaining such good relationship. And going back, status quo April 2020. Adhering to those various agreements that we have between the two countries. I think it's a win-win situation rather than bilaterally not being able to move. Our Raksha Mantri is very clearly stated that look, unless there's peace and tranquility, the question of improving bilateral relations don't come up.
That's right.
And I don't think the Chinese are probably wanting to test waters.
Right.
I think my gut feeling is that they will go back to April 2020 because that will be a win-win situation for both sides.
True. In fact, initially in February this year, when the WMCC, the working mechanism and coordination on the border issues that the India and Chinese have from 2012 onwards, there was a meeting in Beijing for the first time in 3 years in person. The WMCC met, both sides met. And there was a bit of a hopeful language there that, we should consider resolving the border issue. But after the 18th Corps Commanders meeting in Ladakh, in Moldo, at the Moldova-Tushul meeting point, there seems to be a new phrase that the Chinese have introduced, normalized border management. Now, how would you interpret that?
See, normalizing border management means accepting what exists on ground,
Yes.
which is not acceptable to us.
To India, yes.
And therefore, the Chinese media seem to be using words like overlord issues. That the Indians are trying to boss over us and tell us that 1, 2, 3, without which nothing will happen.
Nothing will happen.
I think that is not a good way of looking at things. It's better that the Chinese also look at it that if they intend to, the resolution is there.
It is in their hands.
Because it is they.
It's in their hands, It's in their hands.
If the Chinese have started, and the result is what we have seen in the last 3 years, bilateral relations are the lowest, even though the trade seems to be doing well.
Yes.
But the relations, and it does matter to the military on ground.
Right.
There is tremendous amount of tension.
Of course.
You have to be alert 24/7, vigilance at all times, no question of this thing. And after all, the altitude matters.
Of course.
Things are difficult. Terrain-wise.
Staying is difficult.
And then you find that they will come at will, and whereas we are seated there.
Yeah.
So we are occupying all our posts 24/7, 365 days.
Right.
For them, they'll just come at free will, driving down and seeing and creating.
Because they have better infrastructure. So in fact,
better infrastructure again, because the area is plain.
Plain on the other
Plateau
side.
is there.
Plateau is there.
Whereas we are actually rising up
Tibetan
and then
plateau.
coming from-
They have a Tibetan plateau.
Yeah,
But coming back to the possibility of a solution, let's say, or a resolution, one thing India has made very clear, even during the bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the SCO Defence Ministers meeting, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has made it clear that you have violated all the border agreements, and unless status quo ante is restored, we can't talk about the larger. Does this send a signal to the Chinese that they should actually now think about restoring the status quo ante? And do you think the Chinese foreign minister, who's going to be in India tomorrow, we are speaking on Wednesday, Thursday there is a meeting of the foreign ministers of the SCO. Do you think he will come with a different approach or a different message?
I think it's absolutely crucial. And that is very difficult. But if the Chinese are looking at, if they want to sabotage the G20 summit, or they want to sabotage the SCO summit, then their stand will be extremely hard.
Right.
They are not going to budge. But if they see that there's a lot that they can gain by creating an environment, and which is, I think from the Chinese side, it's virtually peanuts. What is going back to April 2020? It was existing.
Correct.
So it just goes back to that square one, and just, but if the Chinese are playing hard and they don't want to, that means they're very clear, and we should also be able to understand that the Chinese don't want to have good relations with India. They only want to have trade with India.
Right.
And they would rather prefer to have these tensions going along because it doesn't matter to them. And the various new border laws that have come allows them to be as close, and those kind of 640 odd villages then bringing up along, they are going along with it. They're virtually outsourced their LAC management to the Tibetans, so some of the border guards, to everybody else, and their own main troops, the PLA, are behind. They would say 50, 60 kilometers.
Right.
So if you see the kind of deployment and the kind of movement that the Chinese are doing, this meeting with our foreign minister, I think, will be the foundation as to whether Xi Jinping will come to India, or would he not want to come, or would it be a virtual meet? Again, whether it be a G20
or SCO.
The SCO.
But after all, SCO is the Chinese, has been birthed by the Chinese way back in 1996 as Shanghai 5, and then turned into SCO in 2001. So Xi Jinping has equal stakes in SCO success as other members, including India. But we'll leave that aside a bit. Let us look at, even if there's no restoration of the status quo ante pre-2020, April 2020, going forward as a military, what would you look back as a military man and as somebody who observes these issues? How would you describe the last 3 years in terms of learning experiences? Where are we now?
We see learning tremendous. Firstly, we've improved our infrastructure. That's one. Secondly, even soldiering must have gone many notches up.
Right.
They are alert 24/7. Acclimatization, logistics, the kind of fiberglass huts that have come up for the medical, how to ensure that things don't go wrong at any point of time, and surveillance, your vigilance, all of it has improved. Your mobilization of even the armored vehicles, your APCs, your artillery, infantry. So all of it, I think there's tremendous amount of preparation which is there, and the government has also chipped in to ensure modernization on the track. So that way, yes, definitely. But if you see from the point of view as neighbors that we are to China, which won't change, I think the relations have got bad, because you have come to me at Bumla.
Yes.
So you saw...
That's in the eastern sector,
Absolutely.
in near Tawang.
You've seen it in Tawang
Yes.
yourself, and even when you visited me in Ladakh,
Right.
you saw it for yourself. That with the Chinese, we could be open and free and talking, and
Sure.
there are a lot of things that could be done. But I don't think that situation will come back, because there's a total trust deficit, and that is not good for two neighbors of this size. But they seem to be thinking that they are big brothers,
Yes.
and that we should listen to what they are dictating,
Right.
which is not possible for an old civilization like ours.
Sure. So, would it be valid to say, because of the Ladakh crisis, some of these plans and projects of modernization, of infrastructure improvement, of logistics being put in place and being implemented or executed have actually got accelerated on the Indian side, and the Chinese have forced this on India, which is a good development for India?
100%. It's a blessing in disguise, because Atmanirbhar will pick up.
Right.
Defense corridors should pick up.
Right.
The investments must pay. The imports will reduce.
Right.
The exports will So there is a lot of good that has happened, but at the cost at which we would have much preferred something else.
Yes.
The Chinese will ensure that India must not develop.
Right.
India must remain boxed in this South
Asia.
That is why the whole thing is India must be seen not to be looking or be able to punch above its weight. That is what is there, this thing.
Right.
Everybody must look at China.
Correct.
And China seems to be getting a little bit of a upswing internationally, able to get Saudi Arabia, Iran together, talking to Macron, talking to Russia. Everybody is looking at China little differently.
Sure.
And as neighbors, we are not able to see eye to eye. And as India, as a country, is also being looked up at Vishwaguru.
Sure.
Everybody is seeing differently at the strong political leadership in India. So there is a lot of dichotomy and, a lot of things happening.
Tussles happening.
Yeah, at both the ends.
Right.
China wanting to be seen as a responsible country, whereas everybody, the Western world, sees China as not to be trusted.
Right.
And Chinese behavior with India is definitely, there's so much of distrust between the two countries. So it's a very, very difficult situation. And with Ukraine crisis, it's all the more difficult. I think India has a big role to play. India has learned, but India must get into a position of strength if they have to deal with China hereinafter.
That's a very valid point, because that's where I think the whole philosophy evolves, that the Chinese understand the language of force or understand a strong nation or a strong opponent. Only then they behave. Otherwise, they constantly try to undercut or chip away at a smaller nation.
It's a small thing, Nitin. Absolutely right. You see what we did at Kailash Tree,
Right.
and you saw instant how they pulled back at Bangangso. So these are all things that thereafter when they saw that 60,000 mirror deployment on both sides, that we are able to see eye to eye
Right.
and match. Then they said, okay, that is how you find that Gokhale, you find that Hot.
So many
at Bangangso.
rounds of discussions have taken place.
But that April 2020, that
Status quo.
Quo Ante still seems to be, maybe the Chinese have something up their sleeve that they would want to extract more from India before because our insistence on April 2020, and they're not wanting to give in so easily.
Right.
Despite 3 years, and despite what happened at Galwan, and despite what they've done at Yangtze.
Yes.
Not that what they were done at Yangtze, they were not doing it earlier. They were doing it, but the strength with which they came
Was larger.
Yeah, much, much larger. The intention that they came was probably not what they would be doing it earlier.
Yeah.
Even though at Yangtze also, Nitin, I must tell you, any move and every move of theirs, they can spot it. It is nothing that you can't get
Sitting at the height that Indian post is.
They can't surprise us.
So, that is a little bit of a digression in this. One American general made a remark that we shared intelligence with India about the Yangtze build-up or incident. Now, since you were deployed there, you were the brigade commander at the Tawang brigade that time, which used to look after Yangtze. And Yangtze is something that physically you can see the Chinese climbing up if they're coming. Do you need any other help, any intelligence there really?
Absolutely. How would they? You can see the blacktop road. When you're deployed on top of Yangtze.
Right.
So the vehicles have to come on the blacktop road.
Absolutely.
So you can see them down below.
So you can see it with your own eyes. With your own eyes.
Until the weather is extremely bad and it's foggy and misty and you can't see beyond 5 yards.
Then satellites will also not be able to
There's
see.
nothing. We have our own surveillance means be able to find out.
Right.
But yes, if somebody else is wanting to share the intelligence, welcome. I think it's always good to reconfirm to what we are seeing.
Yeah.
Somebody else also did.
Exactly.
So it's but definitely we are on our own.
Yes.
And we would not want to be dependent on anybody.
True.
And that is how we came so strongly on Yangtze.
Yes.
Despite what's happened.
That bigger strength that came in. But before I ask you about how the BPM, the border personnel meetings are conducted, one final thought on the way forward between India and China. If India continues to insist on restoring the status quo ante, or at least bridging the trust deficit, and China continues with its own thought process of not giving in, then do you see the stalemate continuing like it happened in Sundarangchu in the late 80s, early 90s? It continued for nearly 8-9 years before something was done at that point in time in Arunachal Pradesh. In 88, they
Absolutely.
started speaking, but it got resolved eventually in 1993. Do you think that prolonged kind of stalemate will continue?
See, over here, it's a little different than what happened at Wangdo.
Yeah.
You've seen at Wangdo when you
Yes.
come and you saw how our post overlooks the entire camp.
Sure.
So that is totally a different thing. Over here, it's all across.
Right.
And this kind of tension, I don't think it will do good to either of the two countries. It's absolutely essential for peace and tranquility. Only then can you have meetings. You can continue to have border personnel.
Sure.
You can meet as often over drinks, over food, on any issue for that matter, or even some yaks have come this side or braziers have
You send them back.
Yeah, no problems at all. But not this kind of a tension. I think this will not do good to Chinese because we are there.
Yeah.
And if Chinese might think it is not going to do good for India, obviously because it also keeps us
Involves,
we also have a mirror deployment.
Sure.
And how long can you continue to be with this mirror deployment? Maybe another few years.
Yes.
But that's not the way
It should be.
as neighbors
Sure.
we should be living. It is so much better.
Right.
And I still feel, very strongly feel, there's nothing. The Chinese don't lose anything by going back to status quo ante, April 2020. It helps them.
Yes.
The trade is $100 billion today. The trade will only go up.
Yeah.
But with a more, I would say in a more cordial environment, a cordial atmosphere in which both of us can be able to see eye to eye and again meet with the same bonhomie that we were doing it earlier,
Yeah.
rather than meeting where I would rather say, you bring your lunch, I'll bring mine.
Yeah, that's very well put, because you are experienced in dealing with the Chinese, negotiating with them. One sort of remark I want to make here. I heard someone saying it jokingly to the Chinese at an informal think tank meeting or something, that since your infrastructure is so good on your side, there's no harm in you going back to the pre-April 2020 positions, because you can always come back in 24 hours or 48 hours to where you are. So that's on the lighter side. But briefly, please describe to us when you used to meet as brigade commander in Tawang at the border personnel meeting, which used to happen about 5 or 6 times a year.
4 times.
4 times a year. What was the atmosphere then? Because those were described to me by ex-Chinese ambassador that that was a golden era of India-China friendship. It from 2000 onwards till about 2012, until Depsang 1 happened. So please describe the BPM for our viewers very briefly, actually.
Nitin, since you've seen Bumla, you know what Bumla is all about. And there's a heap of stones there.
Yes.
And we used to have a Maitri hut on our side. Very well done.
Yeah.
And Jan Shekatkar used to be the co-commander.
Okay. Yes.
Shot that the whole thing came
Right.
out very well. And they had nothing on the other side.
Okay.
So 4 structured meetings that would take place between the two, and many more.
Yeah.
There was some kind of a young
Sure.
or a brazier,
Yes.
or someone
Coming this side,
like that to exchange each other. And I found the atmosphere was really good. And so many times I met their 2-star generals come to the heap of stone. their interpreters walking up to me and telling our sentry sometimes that, look, our general is going to visit tomorrow. Would you be able to offer him a cup of tea? Or would you be able to, if the weather turns bad, can you give him shelter in the Maitri hut? We have nothing over there.
Right.
And we would be willingly accepting it. And it's such nice atmosphere, environment. We never ever felt that we were enemies. We always saw that we were old friends, old civilizational friends, Asians, and that is how we looked at each other. But suddenly now, if this kind of an environment, if there's no trust, then we are looking at each other with a, with a total distrust that there's something up his sleeve and he thinks there's something up your sleeve. I remember at one time he offered me his vehicle.
Right.
He said, please drive my vehicle because it was centrally heated.
Right.
And he said, can I drive your Maruti Gypsy?
Okay.
And I said, yeah, please drive my Maruti Gypsy.
Yeah.
So this kind of a relationship, this kind of a brotherhood existed. I think it is time that if the two nations have to do well, China is doing definitely well.
Yeah.
India is upswing and India is going to be the third largest economy very soon. Much like all our people to be nobody below the poverty line.
Yes.
That is what our aim is. So in that context, I think the Chinese as neighbors must ensure that, again, as I said, it's April 2020.
That precondition. That
if you ask me, millions of Chinese, if they're listening to you and to seeing your program, I must tell them, April 2020 is nothing. I think the Chinese the foreign minister of the Chinese must say, okay, we go back to that and let's start fresh. I think that will be a good beginning. And there's definitely tensions will go down. Their infrastructures come up, like you rightly said. They can mobilize within 6 to 7 hours. There's no problem.
That's true.
Whereas we still need to be up there.
Yeah. So hopefully things will improve. And the one incident I remember, or one anecdote I remember when I was visiting you, twice I visited you in fact, that they used to ask for a tall Sikh soldier to be around, to be photographed, to be sent back to their families.
Absolutely. This goes back to Boxer's rebellion.
I see. In Shanghai.
1900 in Shanghai. They were scared, It is like that dialogue in Sholay. Soja, that is how it used to be. The Chinese mothers put their babies to sleep. That better, otherwise that beardy chap
will come from tall, Sardar will come.
So that was the fear. And every time they would meet our troops at Bubla, they would be very happily shaking hands and, the kind of khana prasad, giving a cup of tea to them or the pakodas to them. They were very happy and they would bring this thing. It was reciprocal.
Right.
I think those days must return.
Right.
And all these efforts in the last 3 years would probably be telling the Chinese also that they would much like to be friends with the Indian army than to be in a perpetual tension.
Right. So thank you for these anecdotes and great insights into how Indian and Chinese troops used to meet each other, but no longer do so because of the tension in the last 3 years. Hopefully, things will improve. Otherwise, the stalemate continues. So that was General Sanjay Kulkarni talking to us about his own experience and his own assessment of where we are as far as India and China is concerned post the 2020 incident in Ladakh, which happened around exactly 3 years ago, around the same time in May 2020. That's all I have for this edition of The Gist. But do keep watching StratNewsGlobal and of course keep sending us feedback, which is important for us. For the time being, it's goodbye.